What's up everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Custom Track Wiiki Showcase, where I talk about some custom content made for Mario Kart Wii that I find interesting. Today's episode is on everything uploaded to the wiki during April 2022. April was another massive month for Mario Kart Wii custom content, with many things uploaded to the site, which has been typical for almost every month of 2022. I'll be doing the same format as last episode since you guys seem to like it, this time with 9 tracks to cover in depth and 11 tracks for the rapid fire showcase. Let's get started. The first track we're going to be taking a look at is Anti-Gravity Zone by Jasper, which was uploaded to the site on the 1st of the month. That's right, this was uploaded on April Fool's Day, which has become an event for the wiki at this point. A number of people every year upload all kinds of silly creations to the site on April 1st in an attempt to deceive others into thinking they uploaded something of quality. I always enjoy seeing what people decide to create, even as some of the offers are just texture hacks of Luigi Circuit with Rick Astley all over them. This, however, is a completely new track from Jasper, who you guys probably know from his many tracks in CTGP, Secure Sanctuary, Fishdom Island, Magmatic Sanctuary, Sahara Hideout, Siberian Chateau, and Sky High Island. He's very influential in the community with many great tracks outside of CTGP as well. He's definitely one of my favorite creators of all time. This track in particular uses a glitch in the game where if you respawn directly on a mushroom, you start floating mid-air and you keep flying until you hit some road or another mushroom. I do remember playing an older version of this track before in an online test room as a part of the CTGP track testing Discord server, but before then I always wanted a track that utilized the glitch to make a fun race against others. Let's just say that idea was put into good hands when Jasper decided to give it a try, because my god, he went over the top with this. The design caters to the glitch perfectly with the open and wide tubes for the floating section and the boost panels bringing you back to the beginning afterwards. But the star of the show, other than the glitch, is the visuals. Why does this look so beautiful for an April Fool's track? The intergalactic space station textures are incredible. I don't know where they originally came from, but they look stunning. The small changes to the boost panel textures and the purple star galaxy object especially is amazing. And I really like the force field texture on the floating section to help guide the player. This track only really caters to one use, which is battling others on how fast you can float by tilting up or down effectively, but it caters to that use perfectly. If I knew how to make distributions, I'd probably make one revolving around unconventional tracks that promote different types of online gameplay. In a broad sense, that would include tracks like this and the Drum Conquest track from the first episode, for example. Very abnormal tracks that don't drive like any of Nintendo's offerings, if you know what I mean. This might be the highest quality April Fool's creation uploaded to the site ever. Great stuff, Jasper. Our next track is Thunder Canyon by Bugsy, which was initially released in mid-2020, but was remade from scratch and uploaded on April 2nd. This was the first track that he ever released to the site, but according to the preview video description on YouTube, he plans on remaking all of his older tracks, which should be very interesting to see. I already talked a bit about Bugsy in my February video for his work on Bowser's Termination Station and Motorcat's Dirt Derby, but as opposed to those other tracks, this is a completely solo work of his. This track's theme is basically long twisty road in a barren landscape. From what I have seen, this is like the quintessential Bugsy track. He loves making these longer designs with smooth, twisting road and amazing visuals, and this track goes to show how good his style is. Starting with the design, there's a lot of ramps to traverse, a couple of cuts, and a lot of road to get through. This is a track that I find very fun to practice driving in time trials and going for a fast time. The hop tricks you can do on some of the ramps are very satisfying, and I love how the design connects and loops back onto each other, where some potential item play could be had for online races. The visuals might be the star of the show though, with the grungy industrial theme really adding to its uniqueness, and it looks beautiful. Bugsy is known for his light maps, and it looks as beautiful as always on this track. The way he approached ramp indication is innovative and intuitive, and it's something that I love to see in more tracks in the future to improve drivability, because it works like a charm for new and returning players. The caves, the outdoor sections, and the buildings in the background all look beautiful. All in all, this is masterfully put together, and other than maybe some more elaborate shortcuts, I don't think this track needs anything else. Bugsy technically released another track this month, but not publicly to the wiki, just a showcase on YouTube. The track is Eroded Sanctuary, and it looks amazing, but he's choosing not to upload it, which is unfortunate since I love to give it a try myself. But regardless, I can respect wanting to keep the amount of wiki tracks to a minimum. Amazing work this month, Bugsy, and I wish you the best for future projects. Coming up next, we have another update, this time to GBA Ribbon Road by Gabriella, a track that was initially uploaded in late 2019, but received a decent sized update on the 3rd. Gabriella is a creator with only a couple tracks under her belt, but I can still confidently say that she's a very good creator. That's mainly because I really liked her previous versions of GBA Ribbon Road, which is what she decided to update during April. If you've never seen this track before, then yeah, this is styled around the Mario Kart 8 version and it's very solid. The three main changes to the track were a redesigned blue section, improved drivability, and a nerf to the ending cut. And these changes do wonders to improve an already great course. Before I talk about the updates, I do want to say that I really like this course in a general sense because I also really like the Mario Kart 8 version of Ribbon Road. Nintendo really approached the original source material perfectly for the remake with amazing visuals and enticing gameplay that I thought could work in Mario Kart Wii considering how flat the design is. When Gabriella made her version with the same visuals that had the small inclusions like the Bowser wind-up toys over the Cataquacks, I was already a fan. But let's talk about the updates now and how they improved the track immensely. The redesigned blue section is the star of the show here. The new shroomless cuts using the blocks, the baby booster cut that opens lap 3 so you can only take it earlier in the race, the smoother design, and the perfectly placed waving Rainbow Road object all do an incredible job to make the blue section the best part of the track. I can imagine super fun races that boil down to how well people can do the cuts, hopefully much better than how I do it in my preview video as they navigate the waving road obstacle as well. The general improved drivability denoted in the update log was something I noticed as well. This is super smooth to drive and functions perfectly on a design sense basically, and the last change to nerf the ending cut is nice and it makes us feel like less of a luck course unlike Luigi Circuit's ending cut, which brings me to my point on its potential CTGP inclusion. This has been fully accepted to CTGP according to the wishlist on the wiki site. It will be interesting to see how this will be received if it gets added and replaces the older GBA styled remake, but I for one am super excited about this track coming to the pack. Awesome job, Gabriella. I look forward to any new tracks from you since you've only released 2, but here's to hopefully having a third one, I guess. The 39th edition of the Custom Track Jam took place during April with a theme of casino. The results were posted on April 8th, and the one track that I wanted to cover was the track that placed second. This is Behind the Curtain by Lucio Wins. I briefly mentioned Lucio Wins in my last video when he came out with his debut track, Koopa Troopa Palooza, for the Industrial Jam. He's a newer creator, so I don't have much to add to this intro, but he seems keen on participating in every CT Jam ever since the Industrial one, and he's come out with some great tracks seemingly out of nowhere, this one included. The track takes place in a casino with a secret backstage, and it has a simpler design, but it's short and sweet with some very admirable elements. Going into the first section with all the dining tables and ramps, there's a bar with rows of various beverages and it looks so funny seeing it in Mario Kart Wii. Something I didn't even realize the first few times I played this track was that you can land off the ramp onto the dining tables in the first section, and the serving dome trays are actually retextured maple treeway leaf piles that presumably drop the food that was being served, for example a singular banana. The next section is probably the most elaborate with the poker chips and the lava room. I'm not sure what the lava is supposed to represent since I don't frequent casinos often, but the poker chips act as shroom and shroomless shortcuts as indicated by the mushroom texture on some of the chips, which is a small visual element that I adore. There's 2 decently sized shroom cuts that work to add some meta to the design, and I think it creates a great balance of risk and reward. This leads to the dice section with rolling dice objects acting as obstacles that I also really like. The creativity in the custom objects is really amazing, especially considering this is a jam course with a time limit. This leads on to the last turn and straight with the custom thwomps modeled after I don't even know. Again, I don't frequent the casino, but the pill bottle thwomps are a nice touch to diversify gameplay. The track overall has some standard visuals and a shorter gameplay loop, but the middle section especially really acts to encourage fun races, and I love the theming and work put in to create the custom objects especially. The Casino Jam overall seemed pretty average quality-wise, but there were definitely some heavy hitters. The top 6 tracks were all pretty solid, with the top 4 being especially good submissions. I really loved the winning track as well, Pianta Parlor by Tarza129, who I mentioned had his debut track last month in the same jam as Lucio's debut track, but I'm beginning to realize that he does not like uploading his tracks to the wiki, which is very unfortunate for the series, but what are you gonna do? Also, before this segment is over, shout out to Mario Power 55 who hosted the jam and put together the results video. He did a phenomenal job, and I love everything he did with the presentation, from the title work to the intro to the various songs, and it might be the best results video the jam series has ever had. Great stuff, Lucio. Looking forward to any future tracks of yours. Keeping up with the trend of constant tracks throughout 2022, we have another course from Squire Turnbolt, that being Area 64, which initially released on the 9th of the month. I won't do an intro for this because I'm sure Squire has had the most tracks in this showcase series so far. This track in particular has a dark alien type theme, taking place on a farm that is being invaded by Octoombas, which are those blue shooting enemies from Super Mario Galaxy. I don't know why they're named after the Goombas when they look more like Shy Guys, but anyways, I absolutely love this track. I don't think there's ever been a Nintendo course that's explored the idea of aliens or something along those lines, but this has a super creative theme and an incredible execution. For one, I like how this is on a farm, which is something that's only happened on Moo Moo Meadows, specifically on the Wii, which is just a standard daytime farm track. This, however, looks nothing like Moo Moo Meadows, which is good because honestly that track looks super ugly as much as I love it. The light map here is perfect with the green light emitting from the UFOs onto the road and the little emissions of light sprinkled throughout the nightly course, making this feel very spooky. I really like the small visual elements like the Octuba objects sprinkled throughout the outskirts of the track, the cow being abducted by one of the UFOs, and some of the banners and posters that I'm pretty sure Squire made himself. That brings me to the track itself, where we see a more average sized design with some simple elements, and I really like it as well. The farm sections are fun to navigate with the barn spiral switch up, the various grass cuts, and the smooth modeling. The real highlight to the design here is the section where you yourself get abducted by the massive UFO that you ride around on before returning to the farm. There is a split path with bouncy UFOs as well, and that is also pretty fun. I do think overall this would benefit from an upscale and an arrow on the split path, but that's really my only concern here. The track has incredible theming and visuals, and I really enjoyed the simpler approach to the design taken here. I'm gonna spoil my future plans for the channel now, but since I've been very immersed in the wiki this year, I plan to do some kind of wiki awards for 2022 to wrap this year up and let the community decide which creators had the best year for track creation or which track was the best. I'll talk about that closer to the end of the year, but I say this now because I already know Squire is going to get a nomination for Creator of the Year just from what he's made in the past 4 months alone. Based on his current trajectory, I'm not sure if anybody will be able to take him on, but we'll see, and I encourage any and all competition. Awesome job as always, Squire. And just when you thought that we might catch a break from Squire, he decided to release another track with the help of Toxic Amaranth for a GBA Cheep-Cheep Island take, uploaded on the 13th. This was an interesting team up that I would not have expected, Squire and Toxic Amaranth, or Toxic Prime as he's better known as. I know I've been doing that in every episode where I say the wiki name first and then I just call them something else, but I like being formal with these videos. Anyways, yeah, I talked about Toxic Prime in the February video with Cheeseman Fortress. He makes a lot of tracks and he's the only person to have participated in every CT Jam. This version of Cheep-Cheep Island is based on the Mario Kart Tour version, which is the first of its kind for the wiki, and probably the last in all honesty, since these two hit the nail in the coffin here. If you haven't played the tour version like me, the minimap especially might confuse you because there are some noticeable changes here to the original Cheep-Cheep Island, but I did check a preview video of the tour version to this track, and yeah, this is modeled the exact same as the tour version basically. That's probably the part that most people would get hung up on when looking at the track, but this is perfectly successful in depicting the tour version and is one of my favorite versions of Cheep-Cheep Island in Mario Kart Wii. The main appeal to the track for me is the beautiful visuals, as to be expected when Squire is making any kind of track. The textures are unique and amazing, the modeling is crazy good, like the Cheep-Cheep stone as a decorative piece, and the background lighthouse, along with the other various background elements that fill up the track better than the tour version does somehow. The smoother and shorter design works for the track too, honestly. The more simplistic playing style would benefit a distribution to contrast tech-heavy courses. The bouncy Cheep-Chomp shortcut is probably my favorite part of the track, it's so good. But that brings me to my one question. Where do I think the track should go from here? Honestly, I think this idea of Cheep-Cheep Island with the explicit intention of being the tour version on the Wii should be left as it is, since this is basically perfect in resembling the tour version. I would, in a completely different framing, like to see a version of Cheep-Cheep Island with this type of visual style and a closer resemblance to the original GBA track. I don't want it to be one-to-one design-wise necessarily, since the GBA version isn't that great, but something that combines the two versions together effectively would be cool to see. For example, having turns on this track with grass covering everything but the tightest line in the middle bay of the island would combine the two ideas effectively in my mind. I'm not saying that Squire and Toxic have to be the ones to do this, it's just something that I'd generally like to see in the future if somebody were to try and get their Cheep-Cheep Island track in CTGP, but I'd honestly like to see this version itself in CTGP too. I think I'd enjoy races more on this in comparison to Shadow's version, but that's just me. Regardless, incredible work here, Squire and Toxic. Up next, we have a very, let's say, peculiar track, that being the Backrooms by Sparta Yoshi and Love Life and T-Pose 024, initially uploaded on the 18th of the month. Yes, it's a track based on the damn Backrooms creepypasta and the concept of liminal space, which I could not have seen being made into a track this fast. I've talked about Love Life and T-Pose 024 or E-Man Rezu quite a few times in these showcases, but I haven't talked about Sparta Yoshi, who has most of his wiki activity dating back to 2017. He seems to have made a resurgence in 2022 with a lot of updates to his Counter-Strike Dust 2 track, which I recommend you guys check out if you're a fan of Counter-Strike Go. Regardless, it's really impressive how high quality this track is considering it's mainly inspired by a more recent trend and phenomenon. Usually you might expect a track like this to be rushed to fit a current meme, but you can tell that this track was really well thought out and executed. This is probably another course for the unconventional track pack I was talking about earlier in the anti-gravity zone segment, since it relies a lot on memory without the minimap being displayed. That little addition, or subtraction I should say, really adds a lot thematically and gameplay wise as well. You have to rely on the creepy arrows on the ground, and Mario Kart Wii just looks weird without the minimap. It's a different way of playing and I really appreciate that. That brings us to the visuals, which also look amazing with the really intense light map and the eerie yellow hallways. They really add to the intensity in the presentation and give the track its identity. The design also adds to the identity by being more blocky and having numerous pathways, so you start to feel lost on your first playthroughs. Eventually you'll get the hang of it and figure out which pathway is the best, but you can definitely tell that the design was well put together. This would honestly be a really fun track to play with other players, even if you all have played the track beforehand. I've seen maze tracks before on the wiki, but I don't think there's been anything this thematically and visually strong. The innovative nature of this track really compels me to play it more, so I definitely recommend you guys check it out if that sounds like it would interest you. Awesome stuff, Sparta Yoshi and E-Man Rezu. The Backrooms wasn't the only contribution that E-Man Rezu made this month though, as he also released a massive update to his track from late 2021, Northern Heights, with this update being uploaded on April 19th. This was a track that I thought was pretty neat when it originally came out, but E-Man Rezu was steadily working on it ever since it released, and I was excited to see how it would turn out. The track has a wintry mountainous theme where racers drive through valleys and ruins. Basically everything after the canon has changed dramatically in this new version, and I have to say that every change that E-Man Rezu made improved the track immensely. This is one of the tracks that was kind of formed in the CTGP track testing server through the thread system, where creators can make a thread for their track and get feedback from anybody in the server. Yes, anybody. If you want to give creators feedback, I recommend joining the server, and I'll link it down below this track's wiki page. Anyways, this track has had so much work put into it, and you can definitely tell. Let's tackle this like it's a completely new track though. The design here is probably the best aspect to this track. The shortcuts especially are a huge standout. There's the gap cut into the cannon that again feels like an unintentional shortcut, which is why I like it so much. If you don't get it, I explained that idea in last month's video on Lakeside Piers segment. Right after the cannon, there are multiple paths to choose from, with a normal path, an easy shroomless cut into the temple, and a much harder shroomless cut over the pillars that is incredibly satisfying to make. There's also an easier version of this pillar shortcut using a shroom, which I think would lead to some super fun interactions online. Having different options for the same cut, especially depending on the item that you have, really adds meta to the course in a similar vein to Grumma Volcano having the rock hop or the respawn, Mushroom Gorge having the gap cut or the grass cut, Toad's Factory having the shroomless at the end that you can take with the shroom if you're not feeling as risky, DK Summit having the option between an easier single cut or the harder double cut, and the list goes on. I probably made my point early into that list. Then the last shortcut on this track comes at the end with another shroomless gap cut that skips an item set, thus giving a reason to take either path even though you do lose a lot of time going around. Another aspect I really like about this track is the difference in ideas presented design-wise throughout, so driving isn't super monotonous. We begin with the trickable humps similar to DK Summit at the beginning, but they are modeled here much better. After the swerving road section, we move on to a temple segment with more blockier modeling that switches things up. Inside the temple, there is a slippery road section with many pathways and boost panels, which brings us back to the normal swerving road from the beginning, this time with the introduction of the new snowball obstacles that you have to dodge multiple times. That little addition of having to consider each snowball obstacle 2 times as the design loops back onto itself is really charming and adds a lot of intrigue to the track for me personally. It's good noting that as incredible the design is here, the track doesn't feel too long to where so many ideas are being presented and it feels boring overall. This is basically the perfect custom track length in my opinion, normally being around 2 to 2.5 minutes. That brings me to the visuals, which, I mean, yeah, they're good. It's a given with Iman Rezu. As a snow track, this doesn't look like DK Summit or N64 Sherbetland for that matter, which I kind of forgot existed when I made that comparison in my last video. But yeah, this has unique and beautiful textures throughout the track with great shadows and light mapping to make the presentation look very dynamic. The temple section as well also has very unique textures that I weren't able to identify from any Nintendo tracks. And as a side note, because I just realized they were there, the knight statues in the temple section are stunning. Not sure if Iman Rezu modeled them himself, but they're placed perfectly and look amazing. Same with the dragon bones and temples in the background as well. Also, this is one of, if not the most beautiful skybox I've ever seen in this game, with an incredible backdrop and scenery. The dark gray moving clouds in the distance, the moving northern lights that look absolutely stunning, the saturated blue sky with many stars, the mountains in the background making this feel like a real and immersive location, and the smaller details like some fog below the cannon section and the various wind animations closer to the temple. That wind animation is such a small, yet technically impressive detail that I've never seen before, and I love it. Considering that I was just praising a wind animation, I think I've said everything that I needed to say at this point. I've basically praised every element of this track because of how well put together this is. Scratch that actually, I forgot to mention this. The finish line looks magnificent with the dark blue to light blue gradient that Iman Rezu must have made from scratch. I'm just kidding, but the finish line does look really good for the record. Something that I didn't notice until I started writing this segment was that in the Northern Heights preview description on YouTube, Iman Rezu said that this is going to be the last custom track that he'll work on ever, and he said that he's quit making custom tracks. He said that he might make some texture hacks and custom vehicles, but that his modding career for Mario Kart Wii is essentially over. It's hard to say how many serious tracks Iman Rezu uploaded to the wiki, but he's made so many tracks that I've loved, and I think it's very unfortunate we won't see anything new from him in the future. But I'm happy for him, and I have to say that this is such a strong track to end off on. I know his plan is to get this track into CTGP, and with his diligent work to iron out bugs, this will 100% receive a placement, and I cannot wait for when it's finally in the pack. Incredible job on this and all of your other tracks, Iman Rezu. I'm sad to see you go, but good luck on all your future endeavors. Our last track for this segment is another update, this time to a track from mid-2017. This is CTR Hot Air Skyway by Mr. E99, with this update being released on the last day of the month. I guess this is the first time I've talked about Mr. E on this series before, but he's a creator who started making tracks back in late 2013, and he's put out some of my favorite tracks ever for sure. I actually never realized how many tracks he has in CTGP, but he is the creator of the current Rosalina Snow World, Kamix Library, Jungle Ruins, CTR Cortex Castle, Desktop Dash, CTR Blizzard Bluff, GBA Mario Circuit, Desert Mushroom Ruins, Alpine Peak, CTR Engine Labs, Thwomp Swamp, and Koopa Shell Pipeline. So, you probably know him, though some of those tracks are pretty old and not exactly indicative of the type of quality he's capable of nowadays. This track is based on Crash Team Racing's Hot Air Skyway. The update on the wiki only says that there was a visual overhaul, but there were definitely some changes to the design just based on the different minimap. I have not played Crash Team Racing, so I won't compare it to the original in that aspect, but I must say that this is beautiful. Let's start with the visuals, because the skybox, the road textures, the blimps, the other floating devices in the background, the little shadows on the track, and the tunnel section at the end all look absolutely stunning. This has very saturated, vibrant, and lively visuals with lots of spinning turbines that make the track come to life. Some of the small aspects are super admirable, like the spinning casino text in the background, and the starting gate especially, that is modeled beautifully and has a slot machine texture that spells out CTR and then spins and switches to MKW. That's such a small detail that adds so much personality to the track. The design is also good with loads of tricks, twists, and turns, and it's fun to try and pace yourself and complete the track as fast as possible. The blind shortcut is fun to attempt and isn't completely blind because you can see if it's blocked beforehand due to how the ramp is modeled, which would be fun to see in action online to determine who's paying the closest attention in that situation. I do like how the track loops back onto itself for the opportunity to create interesting item play. I will say, be warned of some tight turns and some unclear trickable surfaces. As a wheeler, I'm not going to be shaking my arms when an ambiguous trickable surface pops up, it's too much work. But otherwise, this track is very fun to play, and you could tell a lot of effort was put into the incredible visuals. Great work, Mr. E, and I hope to see more activity from you in the upcoming months. Alright, that's all for the main portion of the video. Now let's move on to the rapid fire segment. You know the drill, I'm just going to be briefly talking about a selection of tracks and give you guys some quick recommendations without any large segments. This showcase has a lot of creations that aren't custom tracks actually, so let's get into it. No Mario Circuit by Mr. E99. This was a texture created for April Fools as well that I wanted to give a quick shout out to because I thought it was pretty cute. It's based on the missing source texture phenomenon from not having Counter-Strike's source installed. Essentially, it's the universal symbol for missing textures, and this has the same idea of no textures along with the bright red error text replacing all objects as well. It's a fun challenge to avoid the error chain chomp and error Goombas while figuring out what is road and what is off-road. I also like how the boost ramp is still animated. Check it out if you like what you see. Cheese Mod Cart by Siki. This was another April Fool's addition to the wiki, but this is an entire game mod that changes all the textures that are not in specific formats into pictures of cheese. That's right, this isn't just a track specific textures. The menus have cheese, the Miis themselves have cheese and they look hideous. The characters, the tracks, the track and bite particles, almost everything is cheese. The goddamn home menu is cheese. It's intriguing yet terrifying. It's fun to see how the game actually works by seeing how this mod changes those game files, and this even has WeMFi support apparently, though I wasn't able to connect. I'm not sure if I was missing something, but this is still very impressive regardless. And terrifying, very terrifying. Wii U Mario Kart Stadium by the Gaming Bram. We've talked about quite a few of Bram's Wii U tracks before, and this is another example of a Wii U track working well on the Wii. I've always liked Mario Kart Stadium and thought it could work in the game due to it being generally flat, and this is a clean design, good visuals, and resembles the original well. There's some modeling issues in here where you can get sent flying from seemingly flat road, but otherwise this is basically the ideal version of Mario Kart Stadium on the Wii. Retro Rewind by ZPL. I'm sure those of you that are familiar with the wiki or are well versed in the custom track community know of ZPL's Retro Rewind distribution. I for one knew it existed but never actually gave it a try until his 2.0 version came out this month, and let me say, this is a very nice distribution. As you might expect, this contains every retro track from Super Mario Kart to Mario Kart 8, with some Mario Kart Tour tracks as well to wrap the pack together. What's interesting about this is that the newest update from this track added Wii and Wii U tracks. Now you might be saying, how did ZPL add Wii tracks just now to the pack if they were already in the game? But what's smart about what he did here is that these Wii tracks include texture hacks from various creators, so they're not the exact same versions as the one in the base game. They're also placed in the distribution like they are a part of the chronological order of when the tracks were introduced, instead of being right at the start like every other distribution with the regular tracks included. Some other small details I like about this is that some tracks have multiple versions that I assume are randomized every time the track is played, like SNES Vanilla Lake 2 having Jaden and Florian's version over one track slot. The other thing that really sets this distribution apart is that the track selection from what I've seen is really solid. If you needed a distribution of all retro tracks ever, this is the one to get. Hide and Seek by CLF78. I don't have any gameplay for this one because it's online only, but I'm sure many of you already know of Hide and Seek. You might be asking why I'm covering this now, and that's because it was updated on the 3rd of the month with a 2.0 version and a very vague note on the wiki only saying 12th release. Sure enough, I found out after checking the Discord server that this is the last update to Hide and Seek since CLF is quitting Mario Kart Wii mods. There's a range of changes made in version 2.0, but some highlights include the ability to make games last an hour, the option to turn off star invincibility, no more off-road invincibility for seekers, the offline options were removed meaning you can only log on WeMFi or check the credits, and kill information was added so you can see who caught who at what points in the game. This seems like a sizable update, and it is the last one the mod will receive, so if you are interested, definitely check it out. The Discord server is pretty sophisticated for getting matches going from what I've seen. Wii U Bone Dry Dunes by Luca. This is another take of a Mario Kart 8 track by Luca since we originally covered his booster pass version of GBA Sky Garden in the last episode. This is another track that I used to think could work quite well on the Wii other than the section up on its side, but Luca decided to make that part into 2 flat paths and it works very well. The visuals, objects, and the overall modeling is incredible. This will probably be the best version of Bone Dry Dunes made on the Wii, or at the very least this will be very hard to live up to for whoever else attempts to recreate the track. I really like how the gliding section was not turned into a cannon, it was instead made into a trickable platform with a swirling dune trick at the end, where you can take the top path as a bonus shroom shortcut. This is put together incredibly well and goes to show how great Luca is at what he does. It's very unfortunate that Bean lets no Mario Kart 8 tracks in CTGP since this is so great. Obstagoon's Palace by Spy Kid. Some of you were probably wondering why I didn't cover this track in depth, considering some people were calling this the best track that came out during April, which I wouldn't disagree with. I did try and write a segment for this track a couple of times, but I felt like I couldn't really give a good explanation as to why I like this other than some talking points that I felt were too obvious. This is definitely one of the best tracks that came out during the month. The amazing scenery with the detailed light map and shadows, along with the effect interactive Spy Kid-esque design really do give this track a lot of identity. The water room sections and overall visuals are the highlights for me. This is basically a better put together White Garden in my opinion. I'm hoping to see it in CTGP soon, as it would give some fun and interesting races, and this has been accepted by the CTGP Council, in case you guys weren't aware. Dreamland Drive by Squadaloo. Squadaloo came back this month to make a couple of really nice tracks, but they are both very short. I have nothing but positive things to say about them though, even if I have little to say. This is a perfect shorter track with a great Kirby theme, some simple switch-ups, and an effective design. There's some grass shortcuts to save time at the start that seem pretty balanced, and there's a shroom shortcut with an entire split path on the bridge in the middle that works very well. The rolling apples and Waddle Dee objects act as great obstacles in the track, and the visuals are unique, consistent, and perfect. This has a very Nintendo-like presentation, and this would be perfect in a distribution as a shorter track. DKR Ancient Lake by Squadaloo. As good of a track as this is, I'm not going to dedicate a whole segment to a version of DKR Ancient Lake, but this once again shows that Squadaloo is a very strong creator, and this is reaching the ceiling of how good Ancient Lake can get on the Wii. Perfect visuals, design, and object, basically just the dinosaur in the back, makes this a very solid, simple track as well. If the old Ancient Lake were still in CTGP, then this would have been a really great update to see. SNES Bowser Castle 3 by Sky High. This is very similar to the SNES Bowser Castle 2 remake by Kawaii Don from the last episode, with this really leveling up the original SNES design. I really like the rainy visuals with the blue aura and unique textures. I think the design is very effective with the great ramp section, good drop-offs and switch-ups, along with different visual ideas like the sections inside the castle and the outdoor hedge segment. This is a very effective remake and probably one of my favorite SNES Bowser Castle 3s uploaded to the wiki so far. I recommend trying it out if you're interested. And finally, Storm After the Calm by Lucio Wins. The 40th edition of the CT Jam took place this month as well, with a theme of sequels to tracks from the Underwater Jam, and while that idea is cool, I felt the limitations to the design and ideas might have hindered the creative processes for creators that took place in the jam. I do think Storm After the Calm was probably my favorite, the track that placed third and was based on Calm After the Storm. Lucio Wins took many creative liberties with the design, obviously, since the original track was just a circle, but I thought that some of the inclusions to this track were really neat. The tunnel section is cool with sliding boost panels, and there are good shroom and shroomless shortcuts. Many of them I didn't even know existed until I looked at the track in NoClip. There's a lot to discover here with a nice visual palette, the water especially being a highlight for me. Lucio's output recently has me excited for what his tracks will look like in the future. I also liked Shorky's track from the jam as well, Drip Drop Den, which placed first, but it made me cry when I saw that he modeled it all in Blender. Still really nice though, and I'm excited to see what learning Blender means for Shorky's output in the future as he diversifies his wiki discography. And with that being said, let's move on to the final part of the video. The goddamn awards. The award for the best April Fool's submission of 2022 is gonna go to Anti-Gravity Zone by Jasper. There were a lot of funny and interesting stuff uploaded for this year's April Fool's tradition, but I have to say that this is probably the highest quality upload, and it's a super fun track to play. The award for the best visuals of the month is gonna go to CTR Hot Air Skyway by Mr. E99. I mean, my god, is this track beautiful with so many small details to make this feel so lively. I'll never be able to get over the slot machine texture. The award for the best retro track of the month is actually going to go to Wii U Bone Dry Dunes by Luca. It was a close call between GBA Ribbon Road and GBA Cheep-Cheep Island 2, and I'd be fine with giving it to any of those tracks, but I think that this take of Bone Dry Dunes would play better on the Wii than the Mario Kart 8 version did on either Wii U or Switch, which is saying a lot. And finally, the award for the best custom track of the month is gonna go to Northern Heights by Eman Rezu. It just does everything right and deserves all the praise that I've seen it getting recently. Thank you again, Eman Rezu, for all the amazing tracks you've made. Seriously, you've had a huge impact on the wiki, and your work won't be forgotten. And that concludes April's video. Before we end off, I just want to give a shout out to Mayro. In case any of you guys weren't aware, she decided against doing her usual ranking of every track on the wiki for April because of burnout, which is unfortunate but understandable. That being said, she ended up sharing my March showcase on a YouTube post, and she recommended my videos to her subscribers, which really made my day when I saw that, so thank you again, Mayro. If any of you guys happen to be from her channel, yo, what's up? I really appreciate you sticking around, and I hope you are enjoying watching my content as much as I enjoy making it. As always, the wiki links and YouTube pages for all the authors I covered are in the description if you guys would like to support them, and be sure to like the video if you like the video, but really think about it. The consequences could be huge in the future. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys in next month's video. Peace out.